Welcome to the PCS Edventures Educator Spotlight Series. In today's sponsored feature story, we're exploring the earth beneath our feet. We caught up with Homeschool Director Brittney Morken, who's rolling up her sleeves, making mud milkshakes, and planting seeds of success with Dirt Camp by PCS Edventures.
I found you guys when I started homeschooling. I had taught through the pandemic, and then that's when my oldest came home, or I came home, and he started kindergarten because we didn't know what that year was going to look like. Are we in person? Are we home? So we just decided to try homeschooling. And coming from a public school background, that's pretty risky and different. So we tried it. It was successful, and we loved it so much that we joined some, and then we started our own co-op. And we settled on using some of the units from Edventures because my family lives on a homestead, and they just fit together so well. So what first drew us to Dirt Camp was I was just looking through the catalog of offerings, and my oldest is a boy, and I thought, Dirt Camp. Oh, I wonder what that is. Well, I guess it doesn't even matter what it is. It's dirt. He's going to love it. And a lot of the kids his age in our co-op they're all boys. So I knew I was going to have the boy buy-in because it's dirt and they're just super into playing and getting messy. And my next is a girl, and she's super into that as well. So I thought, dirt, okay, whether it meets my learning objectives or not, it's going to be fun, and I'm going to have total buy-in. So I went ahead and got it. I didn't know too much about it other than I knew that I loved some of the other products I'd seen from Edventures. So I thought, you know what, we're just going to do this. And I will say I tried to be very adventurous and self-sustaining by finding and sourcing the dirt myself, which I wish I wouldn't have done. I wish I would have just gotten the whole kit with all of the dirt pre-done, because I spent a whole summer trying to find and source all the different kinds of dirt, and that was a total nightmare. Everything else was great, open and go, and it was really easy to open the lessons and see what was going on. And then I kept seeing, so many of the teacher notes say, here's how you like dirt conservation, and here's how your dirt management and all the dirt in your different bins. I'm thinking, why in the world did I try to do this myself? So I shouldn't have done it myself. I kind of created way more work than I needed to do for myself. But that's not on you guys. That was me trying to think that I could do it all. So I know that if I would have gotten the entire kit and all the dirt included, then it would have just been really easy, open and go. But I was drawn to it because our co-op meets on a homestead. So we were already doing dirt things, and I was starting a garden. So we were already figuring out and testing soil pH levels and how you amend that. And the homestead that we're on is like a 150-year-old homestead. It's so cool. So the history is so rich. And I knew that the homestead that we're on was even here before the famous Idaho water canals were put in. So I knew that water conservation was a huge part of the history of what we're at, or of the land that we're on. So it just made a lot of sense. And then I loved that there was just so much history of agriculture and farming kind of woven throughout it, which really made sense for us having this lived experience and trying to figure out how to do farming ourselves. So yeah, it was fascinating. We live next to a big lake as well. And so we were able to get in the car and drive and go see a beaver dam, what that looks like, especially one of the lessons talk about, beavers and different agriculture and animals that live around lakes and rivers. So yeah, we had so much fun with that. It was a blast.
How did you go about implementing with the teaching guide? And tell me about some of your experiences and maybe some of those aha moments, some of the fun things that you guys did when you're playing around in the dirt.
Yeah, playing around the dirt. That is the perfect way to put it. And I will say that parents loved it. In our group, we have parents are with kids, and often we've got a grandparent or two visiting and helping. So we have a ton of adults who are volunteering in our classroom, which is so perfect for all things dirt. And I have to tell you, they loved it. The kids would go home messy and dirty. Their clothes weren't stained. They were just blissfully happy, covered in topsoil, and it was a blast, and sand and all this stuff. One of our favorite lessons was the mud shake. That was probably a favorite that the kids talked about all the time. Yeah, so in our group, we meet once a week. So I would do one lesson a week for a whole semester. So it was all things dirt and mud the whole semester. And then at the end of it, we planted a community garden together, and we had to use all of those skills of drainage and what kind of soil and what the pH levels were. But yeah, I'd say the mud shake was probably our favorite. Specifically, my daughter was She was 5 at the time. She was in kindergarten, and that was her favorite. And she kept this cup of mud. We found a lid for the top of her. We did like in mason jars. She kept it on her nightstand for a year. And I finally was able to convince her that we could find a better spot in our house for it, maybe even outside. I think we ended up taking it outside, but it sat by her bedside table and she loved it. Yeah.
And tell me a little bit more about some of those aha moments, especially when they were doing that the mud shake, where they do the layers and watching the different types of dirt kind of come together or separate. And what are some of those things that they noticed?
Yeah, when we did that lesson, I spread all of the different ingredients of the mud shake, so all the different kinds of dirt samples around the room. And then I followed the lesson, and then I tweaked it a little bit to make it make sense for our group. So I made groups of kids go to every station of the different kind of dirt, and then they had to become the expert of that kind of dirt. So one by one, they would go around and they would add in each of the different kinds to their we did mason jars for our little group, and they had to become like experts. And I can't remember if this is in the book or if we tweaked it a little bit, and I like that you can just follow it, open and go, or you can use it as a reference. And sometimes those aha moments just come as you're like doing it and kids are curious, you go down rabbit trails of what they're curious about. So I had them hypothesize, and I think this is in the book, hypothesize of like which of the items were going to be heaviest and lighter. And it was wild to see what they imagined. I think the clay specifically took them all by surprise. So they go around and got all their scoops of different dirt. And I want to say we even like drew a picture of what they thought it was going to look like. And then we put it on the shelf. And since we just meet once a week, I took pictures of it through the week as the layers were settling, and I would send it to their parents because our school is kind of untraditional, and the parents and I text through the week. So I sent pictures to the kids since they couldn't see it themselves every day. And then we, at the end of the week, the next time we got together, then they drew it. And a lot of the kids were really surprised, and it almost got like competitive. Like, I thought the stand was going to do this, and I thought the loam was going to float, and I thought the moss, so it was interesting that they were almost cheering for it like a sporting event. I'm like, guys, it's dirt, but they were really into it. So that was fun. So I think because of that, my daughter was so excited about hers. She must have got some of the layers correct because it was like her prize. She had it on her nightstand table for like a year. She loved it.
What lifelong skill do you think that your kids and some of these other kids in this co-op have developed with specifically talking about the dirt camp? Like, what are some of those things that they focused on?
One of the aha moments that I saw for my kiddos and my students was that there's just a lot more than meets the eye with something even as simple and basic as what's underneath your feet. And I really liked that. I think it was lesson 1 that said, like, let's think about what's underneath our feet right now, what's underneath our houses, what's underneath our feet when we go into our yards. And I feel like it just got them starting to think like, well, what is under there? I don't know, dirt. But then learning about like the different layers and the different levels and the purposes it had and what it did and how it drained and what that means. I think that's really interesting, that just the most simple thing you don't even think about and you take for granted that you're around all the time has a lot of complexity. So I kept seeing those like, oh, at my house, we had this. Oh, when I went into my garden, I noticed there was this kind of dirt, or it was loamy, just all the different like words we learn about different kinds of dirt. So I liked those moments of like, there's a lot more than meets the eye when you think about something. Maybe it's not as simple as at first blush. Yeah.
What would you say to other educators in regular traditional schools, libraries, YMCAs, all across the board? What would you say to encourage them to utilize some of these programs that you've used into their classroom if they feel already kind of overwhelmed and they don't want to add one more thing? Like, what would you say to them to spark kind of that interest and that confidence to just go ahead and get one of these programs and give it a try?
Yeah, well, so my background is in education, and right now in this season of education, I'm around a lot of people who have not been formally trained in pedagogy, and I'm noticing that some of the other volunteers are feeling very comfortable and confident with the curriculum because it's so open and go. And it's so no stress, it just really walks you through, and there's some things that are even scripted that are helpful, but you also don't have to do those, which is nice. So I feel like the presentation of the curriculum itself to the educator is very approachable and non-intimidating. And I feel like there's so much freedom within it, like use what works and then you can expand it and then throw out what doesn't work for your group. Or take one thing and do it to the max and leave other parts out that isn't going to work, or do all of it, or whatever your time constraints are. So it's super easy. And it makes you look like a rock star teacher, because the parents and the grandparents, they love it. That's all their kids talk about at home. And the kids are super motivated and it's fun. I mean, yeah, they're learning and they're getting life skills and they're critical thinking, but they don't know that they're doing that. They just think they're having an adventure and it's fun and it's silly. So it's almost like an extension of play, and it's really hard to get them to be done. I wish I had more time with my kiddos to go deeper. Like, in retrospect, I wish I would have grown butterflies with my kiddos, but I didn't even think about it till after it was done, or like had a class pet and like done different things. We did have some bunnies during dirt camp, which is interesting, because the book kind of talks about like critters in the dirt and stuff. So that was really fun to have. We had our classroom pets. They were in the barn, but they were still accessible. We'd go see them. I just wish I had more time to do more. There's more things, and then the school year would come to an end. I'm like, I wish we had time to do this, extra extension, or, I would add this in. So yeah, I just wanted more time to do more.
Well, I'm thinking about your environment there on the homestead. I mean, you guys can go, depending on the season, can go outside, and I'm sure the kids are helping plant gardens and they're taking care of animals. And so they are getting a lot of hands-on experience.
Yes.
A big thanks to Brittney for sharing the creative ways she's bringing STEM to life out on the homestead. To listen to more stories from educators like you, visit adventures.com/spotlight. That's EDVENTURES.com/spotlight.